I'm Maeve Bancroft, 24 years old, the overlooked daughter in a family that built its name on money, influence, and a reputation polished so bright it blinded everyone but me. My sister, Celeste, fit right into that world. Perfect smile, perfect resume, perfectly adored, while I grew up as the shadow trailing behind their polished portraits. For as long as I can remember, I've been the one who didn't belong, the one my father called quiet in public and a waste of potential in private. I used to think being the black sheep was painful enough until the day my grandfather's will was read and the truth about our family finally cracked open. And trust me, no one was prepared for what spilled out. The fire popped once. No one flinched. The lake house living room was colder than it looked. Late afternoon light spilled through the frosted windows in thin bars. Dust floated like ash. Corwin Hale sat rigid in the armchair, though trembling slightly in his hand. His voice, though trained to sound neutral, cracked on the word allocation. To Celeste Bancroft, he paused, then looked up. A personal check of $6.9 million from the secondary trust Edmund Vale established last year. Celeste smiled like she expected it. My father's hand landed on her shoulder, possessive and proud. She's always made the family proud, he said. Earned every cent. I was seated directly across from them. The old leather chair beneath me creaked when I shifted. Corwin blinked twice. To Maeve Bancroft. He cleared his throat, reached for a thinner envelope, laid it on the table. Light flat. My mother didn't even look. My father chuckled under his breath. Go earn your own. I opened it with one finger. Inside a $1 bill. Crisp. Centered. Mocking. That's when my mother finally spoke. Some kids just don't measure up. No one argued. Not even Celeste. I didn't move. My pulse throbbed at my throat. The old grandfather clock in the corner ticked, loud and measured. People always talk about silence like it's peaceful, but in that moment it was violence in slow motion. I looked down. The dollar sat perfectly still on the oak table. Then Corwin hesitated. That caught my attention. His fingers hovered over a second envelope. Smaller, unmarked, sealed in thick cream paper. He glanced at my parents. They nodded, but their expressions tightened. He slid it toward me discreetly. It's from your grandfather, he said, eyes flicking back to the page. Private clause. No legal value. Personal. I didn't open it then. Not with their eyes watching. Not with the room bracing itself like a trap. That night, I sat at the edge of my bed in the east guest wing, the only one that still smelled faintly of cedar and old paper. I stared at the envelope. It felt heavier than it should. My thumb slid under the flap. Inside, a small brass key and a folded note in my grandfather's familiar, careful handwriting. Truth waits behind what's locked. No date, no instructions, just that one sentence. My breath caught. I turned the key in my palm. Old brass, worn teeth. The kind of key that belonged to something forgotten or buried. In the hallway, I heard faint voices. My mother laughing low, my father uncorking another bottle of wine. Celeste's heels clicked across tile. Their celebration was quiet, smug, complete. But the moment that key touched my skin, the chill in my blood shifted. They thought they buried me with $1. I'm about to dig up what they thought would never surface. The key clicked once, metal against metal. My breath caught. I knelt by the floor panel behind my grandfather's old bookcase, the one he used to knock twice before leaving the room, as if telling a secret to stay put. The lake house creaked above me, wood expanding in the cold. Everyone else had gone to bed, or so they wanted me to think. Cedar, dust, paper so old it curled at the edges. Inside the floor compartment, a drawer no bigger than a file box. I slid it open slowly, heart hammering. Folders, a microcassette recorder, 3 tapes marked in my grandfather's handwriting. One word, argon, and beneath them, an envelope, thicker than the one from the will. This one held weight. I lifted it. Something shifted inside. Keys. Flash drives. A business card. Rhea Thornton, charitable asset consultant. A number. No company name. Another folder, thicker, bound in black twine. I hesitated, then untied it. Wire transfers. International. Names I didn't recognize. Numbers with too many zeros. Then one name I did. Dorian Bancroft. Money's just paper until it moves, Grandpa once told me. Watch where it goes. That's where truth hides. My hands trembled. One transfer linked to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. The date matched the same month my mother hosted a fundraising gala for the family's research foundation. Twice a year, she'd rent a ballroom, serve scallops and silence. Turns out silence paid dividends. Cut scene. I turned on the recorder. Click. Static. Then voices. My father's. Calm. Controlled. He'll sign whatever's needed. Just prep the secondary trust. Another voice. I couldn't place it. We need the proxy rights. If he dies with them intact. He won't, my mother cut in. Clipped. Cold. The foundation folds with him, and we don't get a cent. Then my grandfather's voice. Quieter. Raspy. You're making a mistake. Silence. Then the recording ended. Cut. I pressed rewind. Hit play again. But now the device whined, low battery. I yanked the tape and stuffed everything back into the envelope. My brain raced. If what I just heard was real, and it sounded real, my parents had planned to override my grandfather's financial control. Legally impossible unless they altered something. Or someone. Murder disguised as inheritance? No, that was insane. Or maybe just rich people logic. Cut. I stood, pressing the panel closed. That's when I heard it. The faintest scrape. Not from the room. From outside the study window. My blood iced. I turned slowly. Nothing but shadows. Still, I stepped closer. Peered through the glass. Fog pressed against it like breath. Then something moved. Not fast. Not aggressive. Just watching. A flicker of motion. Then gone. I stepped back. Hand gripping the edge of the desk. The air suddenly felt too still. I grabbed my phone. No bars. Typical. Turned back to the door. My phone buzzed once. Unknown number. One message. Don't dig what you can't bury. My throat tightened. I looked back at the window. The fog hadn't moved. A second message came in. Eyes up, Maeve. He left more than a key. A chill crawled down my spine. I checked the door lock. Still latched. Then I noticed something I hadn't before. A corner of the rug was peeled back. Barely half an inch. I knelt. Lifted it. Another panel. Unlocked. Inside a safe. Manual dial. No keypad. No fingerprint. A date scratched into the metal. October 29th, 97. The day Edmund's wife died. I spun the dial. Clicked it open. Inside was a single flash drive. Red plastic. Labeled in pen black ice. My hand shook. Not fear. Something sharper. Closer to rage. Someone once told me, you don't really know who your family is until there's blood on the paperwork. I pocketed the drive. Locked everything again. Reset the rug. No footsteps. No cricks. But I couldn't shake the feeling, like the shadows had memorized my face. I slipped back to my room. Closed the door. No look. Laptop open. Flash drive in. Password protected. The screen blinked. A prompt appeared. What's buried can still scream. Below it, 3 empty fields. 3 answers. Security questions. I clicked out. Not tonight. Backed up the tapes. Saved copies to a hidden cloud. One with no ties to the Bancroft name. Encrypted. Boethosho. Scheduled send if I didn't cancel it within 72 hours. Insurance. Cut scene. Back in bed. Lights off. Body still. Mind screaming. They're hiding something. And if that something's what I think it is, she's not alone in this house. And whoever's watching knows she's found the vault. The morning came too bright, too calm. I stood by the kitchen sink, rinsing out a glass that I hadn't used. Celeste's coffee mug sat untouched on the counter, lipstick stain perfect. A scream would have felt more appropriate than birdsong. Through the window, the lake glittered under winter light, ice crusting over the shallows. The silence outside was louder than anything inside. Cut. Dining room. My parents sipped espresso like it was a casual Thursday. My mother hummed to herself, flipping through real estate brochures like death didn't just pass through this house. Celeste will be making a few statements to the board. My father said, not looking up. I'm sorry. I asked. He raised one brow. For the foundation. Payout adjustments. You wouldn't understand. It's complicated. Funny how often people say something's complicated, when what they really mean is criminal. Cut. Celeste entered late, skin pale. She looked at me, paused, then looked away. Her coat still held last night's cold. I leaned in, whispered, You slept in the annex wing. Not your usual. She blinked. I didn't sleep. A beat. I heard something. Below the floorboards. What did you hear? She didn't answer. Cut. Office. I returned to the study before noon. Locked the door behind me. Flash drive out. Inserted. The black ice prompt still flickered. 3 security fields. I typed his wife's death date. The name of his first boat. The motto engraved on his desk. Still water doesn't lie. Unlocked. Files flooded the screen. Offshore accounts. Email chains. 1 PDF labeled Argon Ops. Trustee transfers. A list of names. Celeste's among them. So is mine. Maeve Bancroft. Status. Dormant. Dormant? Like I was a backup. A failsafe. Then I saw it. Transfer requests. Active dates. Signatures. Celeste's signature. Authorizing a transaction. Weeks before Edmund died. Date matched a medical report I saw once. Pacemaker. Firmware update. Remote calibration. I'd once heard someone say, the smartest way to erase a man is to make it look like time did the work. Cut. Front hall. I confronted her when she stepped out of the den, phone in hand. You signed something you shouldn't have, I said. Her eyes flinched. I thought it was an internal adjustment. I didn't know what I was authorizing, Dad said. Dad says a lot of things. Her voice broke. I didn't know he was dying. But you knew he was being erased. Cut. Upstairs. Celeste's room. We sat on the floor, like we were kids again. She showed me a hidden folder on her laptop. Documents sent to her from Rhea Thornton. Dad said Rhea was managing the European accounts. That she was protecting the foundation from foreign scrutiny. Protection doesn't come with silenced email trails. Celeste blinked away tears. You think I meant to help them? You didn't stop them. Sometimes omission is just a slower kind of betrayal. Cut. Bang. We both jumped. Outside. Car alarm shrieking. I bolted to the window. My rental. Rear door cracked open. Documents on the seat gone. I rushed downstairs, boots sliding on hardwood. Wind blasted through the foyer as I flung the door open. Snow kicked up like smoke. I reached the car. Rear seats empty. Flashlight out. No tire tracks. No prints. Just the scent of something bitter in the air. Chemical. Back inside, Celeste met me in the hall. You think someone's here? No, I shut the door. I think someone never left. Cut. Library. I opened the desk drawer. Tape recorder, still there. Played the last recording again. But it wasn't the same. One extra line. It hadn't been there before. My mother's voice. I'll take care of the pacemaker. Cut. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. The files are gone. but the shadow left one thing behind, a voice. You're playing the wrong game, girl. Snow thickened over the lake house, swallowing sound. The kind of storm that makes the world feel smaller. Trapped. I drove into town anyway, fingers tight on the wheel, the black ice drive burning a hole in my coat pocket. Cut. The storage unit sat behind an abandoned auto shop. Edmund used it for paper memories. I punched in the code, legal on file, nothing suspicious. The metal door groaned up. Cold. Dark. Smell of rubber and mildew. I swept my flashlight across the shelves. Boxes. Old files. A toppled typewriter. Then a marked crate. Phase 2. My pulse jumped. I dragged it out. Cut the tape. Inside, binders, receipts, notarized filings. Everything dated, documented, reproducible in court. Nothing fictional. Nothing illegal looking on the surface. That's what made it worse. Grandpa always said, the most dangerous secrets dress themselves in paperwork. Cut. The second ledger lay at the bottom. Black leather. Heavy. I flipped it open. Foreign wire transfers. Luxembourg. Malta. Cayman. All routed through what looked like philanthropic sub-accounts. Legal on paper, criminal when traced. One signature repeated. Rhea Thornton, trustee liaison. Not my father. Not my mother. Rhea. A wave of something cold slid down my spine. Cut. I called Corwin. No answer. Second call. No answer. Voicemail kicked in, but it wasn't his pre-recorded message. Just static hiss. Then a shuffle. A whisper. Something like a breath against the speaker. I hung up before it finished. My pulse quickened. Fear, Grandpa used to say, is just intuition with teeth. Cut. Corwin's house was only a few blocks away. Lights off. Curtains open an inch. Enough to show a room upside down. Papers scattered, a chair overturned. I stepped in carefully. No broken locks. House alarm disabled with the correct pin, which meant someone with access. Someone he trusted. I whispered, Corwin. Silence. Then a drip. Steady. Rhythmic. Kitchen sink faucet leaking? No. I found the source, the study. Shattered glass. A blood smear on the desk. Not a lot, but enough to say someone didn't leave willingly. A single folder lay untouched. Face up. I scanned the title. Argon Systems, Beneficiary Realignment Draft. My throat closed. They were rewriting the foundation structure. Cut. By the time I reached the lake house again, dusk had thickened into a dark blue bruising the sky. Headlights cut through the trees, illuminating flakes that fell harder now. I barely parked before I saw a figure on the dock. Thin, bent forward. Celeste. I ran. Ice cracked beneath my boots. The lake moaned in deep, frozen tones. Celeste. I grabbed her shoulders. She flinched like she didn't recognize me. Her lips trembled. They know. Maeve, they know what you found. Who? Her eyes darted toward the treeline. Someone followed me from the grocery store. Black SUV. Out-of-state plate. They waited. Just waited. I called Dad. He didn't answer. Her breath hitched. Mom did. She told me to stay put and not make things harder. The way her voice broke on harder made something inside me snap. Come on. I pulled her toward the house. She staggered once, knees buckling. That's when the brick hit the siding. Hard. We both spun. The brick rolled across the deck, leaving a smear of dirty snow. A piece of paper was taped around it. My fingers shook as I peeled it off. One more step and you join the old man. My vision tunneled. I heard Edmund's voice from a memory, not warm, but warning. Some storms don't come from the sky. Cut. Inside the house, I locked the door. Celeste sank into a chair, shivering. I scanned the note again. The handwriting was tight, slanted, confident. Not a threat from a stranger. From someone who knew. Someone inside the circle. I pulled out the ledger. Showed her the signatures. Ria. Dad. Mom. You're listed too. Celeste stared like the room tilted. I didn't sign anything like that. You did. Or someone used your proxy access. She covered her face. I didn't know they were. Maeve, what does this mean? It means the stage transfers weren't just laundering, I said. They were reallocating legal control. Setting up a backdoor to override Edmund's authority. The kind the IRS flags. The kind federal investigators love. Her tears froze in her lashes. You think they killed him? I didn't answer. Because the truth was rising in me like a slow, sick tide. Pacemaker updates. Convenient timing. Signatures dated weeks early. And now threats. Cut. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. A text. Check the medical logs. Start with the firmware. Then another. He didn't die. He was shut off. A cold wave slammed into me. The lake house lights flickered. Once. Twice. Wind screamed against the windows. I looked at Celeste, whose face had gone pale as the snow outside. She whispered, "What do we do?" I closed the ledger, felt the key in my pocket, felt the weight of every lie. We find the truth, I said, and then we make them choke on it. The lights cut out completely. Darkness swallowed us whole. They didn't just steal the fortune. They engineered a murder, and I'm next. Night came fast. Snow fell heavy. Wind battered the shutters. The lake house moaned under the weight of winter. Inside the panic room, the old wine cellar, felt colder than the storm outside. I heard Celeste gasp once, then silence. I slid the black ledger across the steel table, the one from the storage unit. Hand still shaking. The numbers, the transfers, the shell companies, all pointing to one name, Ria Thornton. Not father, not mother, Ria. Protection, they called it. Clean money. Phony charities. But parchment can't hide bloodstains. I plugged the flash drive, labeled black ice, into the laptop. The screen glowed in eerie blue. Offshore logins. Kill switch codes. Internal memos. Contracts. Contracts. Signed. Not by a stranger. By family. Proof not just of laundering, but of contract executions. Quiet ones. Paid in full. A line scrolled across the screen. Edmund Vale. Vulnerability confirmed. Pacemaker firmware updated. My vision tilted. Cut. The cellar door rattled. Footsteps above. Soft. Calculated. Celeste gripped my coat. They know we're hiding. Her breath came shallow. Someone is inside. I grabbed the shotgun on the wall. Dad's antique. Cold metal pressed to skin. Heart pounding. The world narrowed. I climbed the stairs, every step creaking in protest. Light flickered in the foyer. A shadow moved outside the frosted window pane. I raised the shotgun. The footsteps quieted. Door creaked, and she walked in. All black. Calm. Knowing. Serafina. Smile thin as ice. Maeve, she said. Soft. Knife glinted. I fired a warning shot. Glass shattered. Candles flickered out. She lunged. Cut. There was a struggle. Wood splintered. Air tasted like fear and winter. Celeste's scream echoed from below. It froze me for a second too long. Serafina slashed. Pain exploded. Hut. Wait. Silence. Cut. Blood on wood. Broken glass. The fire danced in panic. Serafina staggered back. Eyes wild. How dare you dig up the past, she hissed. This family protects what's ours. I stood trembling, the shotgun barrel still smoking. You killed him, didn't you? I whispered, rage and grief colliding. She didn't answer, just tilted her head, a small, terrible smile. Something shattered small outside the window. The lake cracked from cold. The ice split. Cut. Sirens in the distance. Distant blue, then red. Faint. Fading. I grabbed the ledger, the flash drive, everything I could carry. Dragging Celeste down the stairs. Blood trailing. Glass crunching under boots. We slid into the snow. Night swallowed us. Cut. On the edge of the frozen lake. Wind cutting through coat, through skin. Celeste wrapped in my arms. Shaking. Eyes wide. What now? Her voice small. I opened my phone. Files uploaded. Automatically forwarded to a secure international financial crimes board. Plus a backup to a major investigative reporter. All with metadata wiped. Boatosho. Dead man's switch. I remembered what Edmund told me once. The truth needs pressure to surface. Files ping sent. I exhaled. My move. Cut. Red lights drew closer. Voices crackling over megaphone. From the forest line, figures in uniforms. Heads bowed, guns raised. Serafina's car sat nearby. Doors open. Engine smoking. She leaned against it, clutching a bag. She glanced at me, then at the ledger in my hand. Her expression faltered. Uniforms moved in. Hands pulled Serafina into cuffs. Celeste let out a sob. Relief, anger, exhaustion, all tangled. I stared at the lake. Ice cracking under winter's weight. Cold mixing with blood and truth. They arrested Ria that night at the small private airport, moving to Greece with false identity. She put up a fight, but the file copies they retrieved were enough. Cut. Later, I stood on the frost-covered dock. Moonlight turned the water silver. The house glowed behind me, half-burned, half-exposed. A carcass of lies. I held the final sealed envelope. Grandpa left me the last key. Inside, a single note, scrawled in ink that ran slightly in the cold. Still waters tell the deepest truths, but only if you break the ice. I crumpled it, tossed it into the lake. Snow fell silent. Ice creaked. The message sank. My breath came steady now. Ice in my lungs. Clarity in my mind. They gave me $1. I burned their empire. I'd say we're even. Night cracked over the lake. Cold. Soundless. Until sirens split the silence like glass. Blue and red lights flickered against snow. Reflections dancing on frozen waves. The house stood still, half in shadow, half in flashing dread. Smoke curled from the back roof, drifting like ash over water. I stood on the deck, coat heavy with snow, legs stiff. Celeste was inside, wrapped in a blanket. The ledger, the flash drive, both in my palm. My breath came in ragged puffs. Glass shards crunched under boots. Everything tasted like dust and fire. Cut. Police cars. Uniforms. Handcuffs clinking. Flashlights carving the darkness. Serafina crawled from the smoking sedan. Cuffs cold against her skin. Her lips twisted in a sneer. She held a bag bulging. Probably files. Probably more lies. She spat words. I heard them, faintly. This isn't over. I stepped forward. Snow drifting across my eyelashes. It ends tonight. Cut. They read her Miranda rights. A crowd gathered, neighbors watching, reporters already snapping photos. Cameras flashing like lightning bugs gone wild. The freeze had lifted. The world looked sharp, cruel. Cut. Inside, Celeste stood shaky but upright. Her eyes met mine. No words. Just a nod. The unspoken, thank you. Sorry. Fear. Cut. Detention, van door slammed. Metal. Echoed. Air cleared. The only sound now. Ice cracking at the lake's edge. Thin lines spreading across frozen water. Cut. I pulled out the final envelope Grandpa left me. The last key. The paper inside had one line. Still waters tell the deepest truths, but only if you break the ice. I folded it once. Twice. Smoothed the edges with trembling fingers. Then I tossed it into the lake. The envelope fluttered, red in the streetlight glow, and sank. Silence swallowed the splash. I exhaled. long and slow. Cut. Snow settled. Wind dropped. The house behind me was a skeleton of secrets. But tonight the skeleton lost its power. Cut. A cruiser idled by the driveway. Evidence vans closed. Uniforms flanked the perimeter. Officers stepped through the woods, carrying boxes, digital drives, cash paperwork, all labeled, all sealed. I watched from the dock. Black coat tight around me. Eyes blood red with cold and clarity. Justice work is quiet sometimes. But tonight it was loud. Cut. Celeste came out. She didn't look like the girl painted for praise. She looked raw, real, shaken. She swallowed. What now? I shrugged, voice steady. We rebuild. For him. For truth. Something snapped inside me. The weight that had driven me since that will reading. The shame. The silence. The small dollar. All that garbage. Now it was gone. Cut. Snowflakes drifted. The lake reflected them like shattered glass. I knelt, dipped a gloved hand into icy water. The touch snapped cold through bone. I murmured to the dark water. You told me lies. I told them the truth. A distant owl hooted. Wind shifted. The house lights dimmed. Only the pier lamp glowed weak. Cut. Weeks passed. Court proceedings. Investigations. The foundation was frozen. Financial accounts audited. Shell companies dismantled. Federal agents called it one of the cleanest takedowns of a legacy laundering ring in decades. Celeste testified. Papers signed. Truth exposed. She cried under oath, not for sympathy but for redemption. I watched from the front row. Gloves off, hands folded. Winter sunlight touched her tears. I felt a kind of peace, cold but real. Cut. Later, I walked the dock. Ice cracking like old secrets. I turned to face the horizon. Thousands of frozen trees. Gray sky. Quiet. I thought of Grandpa. Not the wealthy tycoon. The man who taught me to quietly watch the water. To listen. To wait until the ice cracked. I thought of the dollar. The single dollar on that oak table. Mocking me. Trying to bury me alive. Now, it felt like a relic of ancient cruelty. A reminder of how far I'd come. Cut. I lit a lantern by the shore. Tossed a file folder inside. The wind caught flame. The paper curled, then glowed fierce. I watched the fire swallow the words, the signatures, the lies. Ash drifted onto the snow. Justice doesn't only break chains. Sometimes it burns the shackles too. Cut. Celeste stood beside me, shoulder to shoulder. No words. Ember light in her eyes. A new mansion, legal guardianship paperwork, final estate transfer notices. All in my name now. The lake house, the foundation, the research endowment, the philanthropy trust, renamed, repurposed. Transparency clause, board of trustees, compliance audits. Clean slate. Cut. I pulled my coat tighter. Lantern flame trembled. I whispered. They gave me $1. I gave them silence. Tonight, I trade silence for truth. Snow fell. Soft. Relentless. A thin crack formed across the ice beneath our feet. It spider-webbed outward. Light seeped through. Pale, fragile. The water did nothing dramatic. No explosión. No roar. Just a slow shift. The lake settling. I took a step back. The crack widened. Thin lines of water glinted under moonlight. I exhaled. Cold air, warm relief. Truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it seeps, slow, icy, until there's no hiding place left. And in that quiet fracture across ice and lies, I found something better than money. I found freedom. I turned off the lantern. Darkness settled. The lake held its breath again. I walked away from the dock, not as a ghost in someone else's legacy, but as the one who broke the ice and made the water answer. They gave me $1. I burned their empire. I'd say we're even.